The Democrats have a new logo. I guess they need a facelift. We're going to discuss the top 10 reasons for this new logo. Today I have Gary DeMar and Joel McDermott. Welcome to Vantage Point.
Vantage Point is brought to you by American Vision. For more information on today's show, check out How to Argue with a Liberal and Win. You will find it at americanvision.com.
Okay, Gary, so the Democrats come up with a new logo. Why did they come up with a new logo?
I'm not real sure. Maybe they want to get away from the donkey as their logo, and the new logo is pretty non-specific. It's just a D, a blue D with a circle around it. And when you and I were down in Miami, I ran into a longtime friend, Raul Montez, and we were sitting around coming up with what does the new Democrat logo represent? And he and I came up with a couple of things. And we were sitting at the airport. I typed up a few, and I put 8 of them up. And then you came up with the last two. And so it's lots of fun. What we're really waiting for here is for the Republicans to come up with a new logo. Maybe we ought to do that as well, and maybe a libertarian as well. Taking maybe doing the same thing, putting R in the center with a circle around it, and the L with a circle around it, and see what we can come up with. But these were our top 10.
Sure. Now the logo they came up with is pretty uninspiring.
Yeah,
I mean, but okay. So we've added some fun to it. All it needs is an A, as in DOA, Dead on Arrival. Dems.
Which, by the way, is a very good movie. The original DOA. You need to watch that if you haven't seen it.
Okay, can you read the list?
You want me to do the list here?
I'll do a couple.
Okay. Dems circling the wagons around Obama, and again, this would apply to Republicans too. This is part of the problem with partisan politics. You put a Republican into office, and they did this with George Bush. The Republicans, even though they held their noses on certain policies, they voted for him because he was a Republican. Well, the Democrats do the same thing, so this applies to Republicans as well. It makes a great bullseye for political target practice if Republicans can learn to shoot straight. And I picked this one, picked that because it seems like conservatives go out of their way to attempt to lose an election.
Try hard.
Yeah, they really do try hard. How can we lose the election this time? But there you have. We've got all these Democrat liberal policies out there, and conservatives have got great target practice. Will they shoot straight in doing it? The other one is a Homer Simpson, I voted for Obama. People are getting to the point that I can't believe I made this mistake in voting for Barack Obama.
The grade Obama gets for the quote-unquote summer of recovery, but you'll need to add the minus. Excellent.
Yeah, we've seen that some parts of the economy are in fact recovering, but we still have high unemployment, and people really do in fact feel that more than anything else. A recession is when you don't have a job, and that's where we are. We're getting probably close to 10%. A lot of discouragement in the employment figures.
A recession is when your neighbor doesn't have a job.
Yeah,
depression is when you don't have one.
That's right. Or when Obama's out of a job. Okay.
No, that's recovery.
Oh, that's recovery. Okay. The final 5, I'll go through these quickly so we can get to some other topics. Debt as far as the eye can see. Overdosed on the Democrats.
OD.
Yeah, that's a good one. Dodging taxes. How many appointees has Obama had that have been caught not paying their taxes?
And this was supposed to be the most transparent and ethical administration. Now, again, this isn't to say that the Republicans were any better, but you better be careful on how you position yourself as a political candidate and as a party, and then the types of people that you put in charge. And again, if this had been the Republican administration, a guy like Geithner never would have made it in if he had been a Republican.
Right. And what was the Bruce Willis movie, The Sixth Sense? I see dead people voting. So the Democrats have...
Now that's based upon the idea that the voting rolls in some Democrat strongholds, there are more people on the voting rolls than there are people alive in that area. And so the reason about dead people voting is that they actually use dead people. Say, hey, here's a guy's name. Go to the polls. He's still on the voter list, even though the guy is dead. Go vote in his name.
Yeah, we knew he would have voted Democrat.
Yeah, right. Okay. Yeah, that's why he's dead.
All right, number 10, the final one, Democrat. Enough said. So there's your top 10 reasons for the new Democrat logo. But you raised a point early on about do conservatives lose elections almost on purpose? And that brings a good point up. If you're at the polling place and you're a conservative voter this November, less than 30 days now, and maybe you have the option of a radical left-wing Democrat, a moderate to somewhat left-leaning Republican who's for socialistic economics, or a third party who's ultra-conservative, who stands for everything that we would hold to as a conservative, which do you pick, knowing full well that the third party is going to lose? So this is a question that either one of you can tackle.
Joel, you want to go first on this?
I have no problem voting on principle, and I think that's the biggest problem. I mean, this guy says, you know, it's more important to have moral impact than to make a moral statement. But you know, if we don't speak up on these issues, the Republicans are never going to change, and they're the ones that need to change. You know, it's strong conservative Republicans that win the elections, except in some circumstances, of course.
This is true.
And these guys are telling us, well, no, you have to vote the lesser of two evils. No, I don't have to vote the lesser of two evils. Voting the lesser of two evils is still voting for evil. And the guy who started this chain of articles is a guy named Greg Kuchel. He finds his Christian ethic from a statement by the Pope who says it's okay to vote for the lesser of two evils. Well, if you're trying to persuade the moral majority, the last person you want to quote is the Pope, a guy who claims to be Christ's vicar on earth. You know, he's not going to persuade me. Look, this has been the Republican Party's argument for what, you could go back 150 years, I think, but really certainly in the past 75 years, 80 years, when FDR passes all this legislation that he passes, the New Deal, the Republican cry was, we're going to get back in office and repeal all this legislation. Well, they got back in office, they did nothing. The same thing happened through every administration since then, the Great Society, et cetera, et cetera. Carter gets in office, he creates the Department of Education. Reagan gets elected saying, I'm going to abolish the Department of Education. Never did it. By the time you get to George Bush in office, not only do we not abolish the Department of Education, we increase it with No Child Left Behind to the tune of some multiple billions of dollars. So now they've completely acquiesced the system. So compromise is always compromise, and it never reverses anything. And holding our nose, we've been holding our nose for 75 years, and we're starting to get a little blue in the face from it.
Now, here's my take on all of this: is that because we got people who are running for political office, very, very conservative, and I think in the primary you do have a choice. You got a number of conservatives in there who go in and they run and they do a fairly good campaign and so forth, and they don't make it, and then you're left in the general election with two guys. But what gets me is that you got people running for president who have never won a local election. And I cannot see how an individual who says you need to vote for me as president of the United States because I'm not the lesser of two evils, and you know that the guy does not have a snowball's chance in hell of getting 100 votes, but I'm supposed to vote for this guy.
Right, out of principle.
And I just think that is ridiculous. I think what the conservatives need to do is put up some really viable candidates who, in fact, will stick to their guns in the general election when they finally get in there. But Christians are this idea: you have got to vote for this guy because he is not the lesser of two evils. He will do what he says he's going to do. But the guys never won at the local. They never won at the local.
That's true. So you got no track record.
Yeah.
But certainly another issue. You're seeing places where there are tough conservative candidates going in. You see Rand Paul in Kentucky, you see others in Florida. And what's happening there, the Republican Party is not backing these people, they're attacking them. In fact, the establishment is aiding people against them. And like in Florida with Crist, she's going to run independent, which is essentially going to give the vote to the Democrat. So here's the issue. Why are these people not writing articles to those people saying, why don't you hold your nose for a change and vote for the strong
Same thing happened up in Alaska and Delaware.
It's always a compromise for the strong conservatives. No, it's time to change that and go back. And of course the real problem here is the fact that this is all focused on the level of national politics, and for true conservatives your focus should be on local politics. And what really changed that, and of course, you go way back in American history, but what really changed that were the Reconstruction Amendments, 14, 15, 16, 17, all under Republican governments. by the way, which basically vaulted all politics to the national level. Now, if you want to change anything in American society, you have to have control of those top-down offices. It destroyed American culture, and that was a Republican invention. So don't tell me to hold my nose. I'm done holding my nose.
Well, the way senators are elected as well, didn't it used to be that the state legislatures elected senators?
Yeah, because they were supposed to represent the interests of the states.
Right.
And of course the left has always known that they can modify the position on any piece of legislation by promising the people some benefit. If you vote for me, I'm going to give you a particular benefit. This is going on in Brazil right now. I don't know if you noticed, there's been a change in Brazil, and the one woman says, "Oh, my freezer is now full of meat," and she's saying, "Of course, now I'm for this people because this person has done some benefit for me." And I think Chavez, in order to get reelected, he made low-interest loans available to people to buy electrical appliances. Now, that's really overt, but here in the United States, it's a little more sophisticated than that. And it's like, what have you done for me lately so I can vote for you? And that was the purpose of the states sending these two senators up there to represent the interests of the states. That's no longer possible. And so now we've got a 50-50 balance of power in this country, where those people who are receiving benefits through the state from the productive members of society, and once that tips over to 50%, there's no way to get it back.
And so the election is always hinged on a tiny minority of a swing vote. So they're always going after the gay vote or the black vote or this or that vote, and there's really no true representation of the American majority or the American culture in general, because it's all run by these radical minorities.
So the question is, will
you
this
have to
next
pander
election,
to those people in order to get elected.
This next election, are we going to have a lot more Christians and conservatives coming out to vote than ever before, and will that be enough?
Well, I don't know. I don't know how long the anger will persist. Again, I think a lot of the people who are voting, they're angry. They're angry that their Medicare's being cut. They're angry because they think Social Security is going to be so. There's so much that has to change ideologically among even the right, and I think you'll end up seeing people being upset because of certain benefits aren't going to come to them, and they say, "Oh, we didn't mean it to go that far."
Right. Yeah, this is not a moral majority movement. The Tea Party movement is anger over government. It is not necessarily driven by religion, I don't think.
Well, that's a wrap for today's show. On our next episode, we're going to talk about Obamacare, whether or not it's working or not. Thanks for joining us.
For more information on today's show, check out How to Argue with a Liberal and Win, edited by Joel McDermott. Countering dozens of liberal arguments with logic and tact, How to Argue with a Liberal and Win is a crash course on defending the principles of liberty from her enemies, and gives realistic, educated answers to some of the most persistent cliches of socialism. You will find it at AmericanVision.com.
What was it? This is wrong. I don't know why you keep doing this.
You're not recording, are you? Shoot.